Welcome to 8 Cubes, the show where two of Marvel Snap's best players break down the metagame in all the ways you need to be prepared for the week ahead. We are 8 Cubes. I'm Cam Best. He is Lamby Series. We are going to start off with Gilgamesh, the Season Pass card for the Eternals season. He is a 5/7. He gets +1/+1 for each card on your side of the board with improved power. And there's a little bit of ambiguity about this, but the way I read it means that this is a Blue Marvel card. That Blue Marvel is the card that synergizes with this card the most. And I think that interaction is probably so strong that it will overshadow the other interactions that this card has. This is a card that is a possible 5/17 or something along those lines on a full board after a Blue Marvel, maybe a 5/18 depending on the ordering of that. Strong, big, large man. Large men in Marvel Snap and large women have typically been good. It's been a while since we've had a card where we just look at it and we say, oh, that's a really big guy, and it's just not been a good card. I have promised myself that I will try to evaluate these cards higher because I've missed on Red Hulk, I've missed on Blob. This is a guy that is sort of in that camp of cards. I am a little worried about him. I might do the typical Cam Best thing of saying, oh, he's just a really big guy. How good could he possibly be? What about you, Lamby?
Right, so in that vein, I've also been like trying to evaluate like the next card that we're gonna evaluate later. Like cards a bit like different when it comes to like the small ball cards, because I know I missed on Sage really hard as well. But like, yeah, so firstly we talk about Gilgamesh. I feel like this card, personally, I actually think it's gonna be quite powerful. The card itself is like we've been using it on this like videos for like quite a bit, like the green power card, right? It's a card that benefits off of green power. And like you mentioned, Blue Marvel is like the strict like most amount of green power you can get on a board like before you play this card, right? It's just a bit awkward because I feel like on turn 5, let's just say like maybe Patriot, you play Blue Marvel on turn 5, you want an Ultron on turn 6, right? But
Yeah.
maybe this is not a Patriot card. Maybe this is just a resurgence of Blue Marvel being able to be played into like other decks, you know? It's been a while, right? Like the last time we played Blue Marvel in like a not Patriot, not Thanos deck was like Zoo or something. Yeah, it's that long. So maybe this gives Blue Marvel like new lease of life. But also I think outside of Blue Marvel, we can look at like the normal suspects of like Angela, Kitty Pryde, Elsa, Thena coming out also as well. Like all these cards are also sort of green power. And you know, it kind of does make Gilgamesh like at least on average like a 5/10, 5/11, you know, like a 5/10, 5/11 just by playing your cards on curve. So I do want to explore this in just like normal mid-range decks instead of like obviously the Blue Marvel angle is one thing, but even without the Blue Marvel, is he gonna be playable? I do think so. Of course he lacks the flexibility of like mobility like Vision or game winningness like Cannonball, but he is obviously just like taller, right? If you build around him. So maybe taller is good in a 5-drop. We haven't had like many super tall 5-drops since like Devil Dino, and I feel like it's been a while since we've seen Devil Dino anyway. So maybe this could be like a new sort of Devil Dino-ish style of card for like green power decks.
I'll tell you what I want to do with this guy. And it's actually not Zoo for once. I won't say I want to play him in
Yeah.
Zoo. Obviously I do, but like I'll tell you what I really want to do with him. I want to put Blue Marvel Gilgamesh
Loki?
in a Pixie deck.
Ah.
I want to be pixieing those cards. And
Okay,
maybe that
okay.
looks like Zoo. Like maybe it's just Zoo with Pixie Mobius. I don't really know. I haven't built the deck out yet. But the first thing I want to do with this card is try to make it 1 power. That 1 cost. That's the first thing I want to do with this card. Is I want this to be 1 cost, right? That's what I want to try to do. Or 2 cost.
Potentially 1 cost, right? Like
Yeah. Like, I want to be able to play a cheap Blue Marvel. I want to be able to play a cheap Gilgamesh. And I think that really opens up the possibilities for him. Because otherwise, it's very much, I play Blue Marvel on 5. I cry when it gets Enchantress. I am very sad, right? But if you can, like, make this sneakier, and this is something that I really think is an upside that Pixie has, is if you can do Pixie Mobius, you can, like, catch people by surprise with what would otherwise be fairly straightforward and obvious game plans, right? And we saw this with the Patriot decks at the beginning of last season, where you were using it to like effectively cheat out onslaughts for a very small amount of energy. That can be the same thing that's going on here.
Yeah, that's true. Like that kind of just makes sense, right? Because like at the end of the day, if you wanna, because I talked about fitting Blue Marvel into like a not Patriot style, that Pixie seems like a very viable option. Of course, I feel like maybe you don't go all in on the Pixie strategy,
Hmm.
which is like you can actually play normal, like play normally, and then if you draw the Pixie early, you just slam the Pixie and then high roll. Like I think that's viable, right? Like, and I think maybe those decks can even just play normal levels of green power. Like you can even play like an Angela, right? Like because it's cheap, and if you swap the Angela like with a blue marvel, you're not really complaining about like a 2 cost blue marvel. If not, then you just play an Angela normally. It's green power. Your sort of Gilgamesh is like a little bit big as well. So something that we can consider.
There's also like some mild upside, right? Like people are playing a lot of like clog stuff right now. And if you're like the blue Marvel
Right.
deck, the ability to like put power into closed off lanes, the ability to, that thing they gave you, the Widow's Kiss. Oh, I guess I get a power out of that now, right? Like it's not amazing, but there is something to be said for like that actually being a useful thing to be doing right now. Next up is Thena. Thena is a 2/1. Typically, not a great stat line, but her ability is interesting to say the least. She gets +3 power for every turn in which you play 2 cards. Now, before Angela came back, I would have looked at this and said, that's super busted. Also, I should clarify, this is not an ongoing ability. It is a triggered ability. So every time you end the turn having played 2 cards, she will get +3 power. She will not get that power in retroactivity. What she will do is be an Angela competitor, an Angela supplement. And when I look at the numbers on these cards, the first thing that I think of is, +3's never been balanced. It just never has. It's never been an okay thing. But if it's tied to a restrictive thing like this, it's face up on the card, and it very clearly gets Shadow Kinged and Shanged. How bad is it actually? How close is this? Basically, the question I'm asking is this more of a Havoc, or is this more of an Angela?
Personally, I think this card is okay. So this card to me is something that I really like. I really like this card's design. Firstly, because okay, I don't think this thing ever like realistically gets Shang-Chi, because like to get it to 210, it's like you got to do like the 2 cards per turn like 3 times. I don't think it's actually something that's like very doable in my opinion. But I'm looking at the range of 2/4, 2/7, right? Obviously, a 2 cost card that's a 2/7 is insane, right? That's already bigger Maximus of sorts. But this card has a beauty to it, which is like there is this very interesting dynamic with this card when it comes to 6 cost cards. So let's just look at this card. So when you play this as a 2/4, right? Okay, so let's say you play Tina, you play something else. I'm assuming this is how it works. Tina plus 1 cost on turn 3 is a 2/4 Tina, right? Like even if it
Should.
doesn't work, fine. Even if it doesn't work, you just play Tina, and then on the following turn you play 2 cards, the 2/4. Okay, so 2/4, we start at this point here. If you are gonna play a Red Hulk on turn 6, she's gonna stay at 2/4. But if you're gonna go Cannonball plus Kitty Pryde, she's gonna be a turn 7. So she's gonna be a 2/7. So like it's kind of interesting, right? Because like people will assume, all right, this card is definitely going up to a 2/7 on the final turn. But what if you just play a 6? What if you just play a Doom, right? And that changes all the numbers. And because like the 3 power difference is a huge difference, like whether you win or lose a location, right? So I think Tina has a little bit of mind games to her, which is a very exciting proposition for me. Also, I think at minimum she's like gonna be a playable 2/4, which is not bad. So she's like a 2/4 with which is potentially a 2/7, but that's the surprise factor, and I feel like that's something worth considering. And I don't look at her so much as like an Angela, because I feel like Angela is like so easy to be like 2/12, 2/14, right? Like if you just like play cards on curve with her. But like for this card, I feel like it's just like she's a bit like a Medusa style card that can get a little bit bigger if you choose to make her a little bit bigger, which also yes does fit in the Angela style decks, and also kind of just also fits with Gilgamesh, cause like I mean Tina, Gilgamesh, Law, but like it's like part of the whole green power strategy. So I'm actually quite like excited to play this card and see if it works the way I think it will work.
My instinct is that it will work that way, but
Okay.
also that playing 2 cards a turn and only 2 cards a turn is a harsher restriction than people are giving it credit for. People are looking at this and thinking, oh, it's easy. It's going to be totally easy. It's going to be perfectly fine. I'll just do it with Kitty Pryde, right? Well, what happens when you don't draw Kitty Pryde? Like, if you're relying
Yeah.
on Kitty Pryde to be the second card on every one of your turns, you're going to not draw Kitty Pryde and it's going to feel really bad like 30% of the time. That's real. So, like, what are you doing when you don't draw Kitty Pryde? What is your second card? What are you giving up to do that? Are you going to be unable to play decks that have 6-drops in it? Are you going to be a Hope Summers deck so you can actually still play those cards? What if you get so much energy with Hope Summers that you want to play 3 cards and you can't play 3 cards now? I actually genuinely think she's well balanced in the sense of like, that's a real drawback there. It's not something you get for free like Angela. You're making a conscious decision.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing also. Is like, I feel like this card, you like, because to echo the sentiment that you mentioned regarding the whole, like, it's not that easy to just play strictly only 2 cards, right? If you look at like the good cards, like best in slot stuff that you want to play right now, turn 5 is never 2 cards, right? Like turn 5 is always Cannonball or Prof or Vision, or like it's never 2 cards.
Annihilus,
Right?
Sentry,
Yeah.
like you can't play Mysterio with this stuff because that's 3 cards. Like,
Exactly.
there's a lot.
Exactly. And like turn 6 is like Red Hulk, and if you're not doing Red Hulk, you probably play a 5 still, and then you must have the 1. So like, so I feel like this guy is just balanced, but at the same time I think there's a bit of surprise factor to it, which is what I'm very excited for.
I feel like you have to build a Thena deck. You can't just like maybe you can just slot her into like the Cannonball Profex Angela deck, maybe. But I think it's more likely that you just need to build a Thena deck for her to actually be worth playing. Because if you just slot her in there, I'm sure she'll be fine. Like, the deck's not going to be mad at a 2/4 that gets discounted by Ravonna Renslayer. Yeah, you're totally cool with that. You're interested in that. But it's not going to be, like, a really great spot for her. She's just going to be, like, okay. Let's talk about the Professor. And I think at this point it's fair to say that he's the defining card of this meta. And I think a lot of that is due to his interaction with Cannonball, but we've seen this with many other cards before Cannonball. It's just Professor X and whatever other card can win one lane. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people have the wrong idea of why Professor X is good. They think Professor X is good because it like beats Bounce or beats Hela or all that stuff, right? And that helps, right? Professor X is good because Marvel Snap is a game where the win condition is winning 2 lanes. And there are a ton of cards that are really good at winning 1 lane. But it's hard to invest in those cards that are really good at winning 1 lane unless you can guarantee that you have won another lane already. There are 2 cards in Marvel Snap that can guarantee that, and Professor X is the best one of them. The other one being Storm, and that's not really like a realistic thing. It doesn't really guarantee it the same way. But like, when you're talking about this kind of stuff, that is the reason why Professor X is good. There are many cards that if you can devote yourself entirely to playing for 1 lane on turn 6, can win that turn 6. But you need to have the prof down to make sure you're not getting outflanked on the other lanes.
I feel like, so it's quite funny. I was laughing a bit just now because like the more I think about it, I feel like there has never really been a time that Professor X was like actually irrelevant, right? Like he has never really been like irrelevant. Like obviously in the past he was 5/3, he was super relevant. Even at 5/1, like he still ends the game sometimes when he gets played, And like this card is just, I know people hate it, people love it, but it's just a part of Marvel Snap right now. Like what else can you do to this card? Like other than a complete rework, this is the lowest it can go, right? Like it's a 5/1. Like I guess you guys can make it a 5/0, but I get that might be a bit too much. But like I guess actually 5/0 is kind of interesting because you can't win a lane with it alone. There's no YOLO Prof X on a random location just to win it, right? So I think if they really want to push it, they could make it 5/0, but that's like a bit harsh also, I feel. But like, they could kind of do it. So yeah, I really don't have much else to say about Prof X there. Like I feel like now in every of my games when I see like a curve, I would expect a prof on 5. Like I just see like stuff being played on curve. I see a Jeff, I'm just like, okay, this deck has prof. Like on ladder, like straight up. Like it's just something that you can really assume right now.
Here's my pitch. They should just buff Echo. We need a card that you can just put down and be like, I'm not getting prof X here. They should just make Echo like a 3/5.
A 3/5 that stays, as in a 3/5 for one location or a global?
Yeah, no, a 3/5 for one location. And it's just like you can't get prof X here. They should just like, I don't know, just make it like a card that everyone can play. Like if there was a card that everyone owned that beat prof X, I think people would be a lot less mad about this. Next up is Hela, who I think is sort of responsible for the rise in prof X, but at a certain point he began to outstrip her as a problem. Now, My read on this situation is it's sort of like, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that meme of Mr. Burns from The Simpsons going to the doctor and learning that he has all of these diseases that would normally be deadly, but he just has them all and they're all fighting each other, and so he's in perfect health.
I actually know this one.
That's sort of how I feel like this Hela Profex thing is going, where it's like, if you nerf one without nerfing the other, the equilibrium will be disturbed. So you have to do something about both, because otherwise you just end up with one or the other. But at the same time, I do think it's gotten to the point where it's like, we kind of have to do something about this. And I wanted to talk about what these specific aspects of Hela were that make it problematic. And I think it's very easy to point to the number one aspect of Hela that makes it actually problematic is just a general and near total lack of way to interact with it. You are, outside of playing either literally Professor X or literally Leech, two cards that are extremely hated for what they do to other decks, you do not have the ability to interact with a Hela. There is no card that says, oh, you know, cards can't be brought back from the graveyard. That's just not a thing. We don't have that, right? And so we don't have ways to meaningfully interact with that, meaning that a lot of Hela matchups are decided from the second you see a black cat fly out of their hand on turn one. You already know how the game is going to go if you don't have the stuff to deal with that. That's just unfortunate, but it's true. A second thing that makes that true, however, is the numbers Hela can put on the board. And the numbers are, like, the numbers need to be good in combination with the non-interactivity. Because if you're just doing non-interactive stuff that a mid-range deck can actually, like, combat on numbers, that's one thing. But if you're doing non-interactive stuff that is taller than everything you're going to be playing against, that's another. And so those are the two things that make Hela problematic in my eyes. Not necessarily in terms of win rate, but in terms of metagame dynamics.
Right, so based on what you've just said, because I feel like you made a very good like point with like what the Hela deck effectively does and why it's oppressive and why you cannot sort of like touch the prof or like do something to prof without like doing something to Hela, right? Like it's like a, like you said, an equilibrium that has to be in place. But like in order to break this equilibrium, like I was just thinking like what can we actually do to like nerf the Hela card without like, you know, completely destroying, because they've done it with prof, right? They've made it from a 5-3 to a 5-1, so that's their attempt, but they actually have never attempted to like actually nerf the Hela card. So like I've just been thinking off the top of my head, like you can't make it cost higher, it's already 6. There's really no point in reducing the power of the Hela because it's like so insignificant. I mean, if it goes down to 6-0, okay, yes, there's a significance there. It might have to be something drastic like that. But if it's not that, maybe it has to do with changing the effects. People have said like only revive up to 2. I think that's a possible one because I always feel like it's the third revival that kills me. Like if it's just 2, it's fine. Like because you know you mentioned like the Hela randomness and big stuff spawning outpowers mid-range decks, right? But what if Hela only revives 2 things? It probably can, but may not always outpower mid-range decks like that have been building up their board from turn 1. What do you think?
I'll give you a reason not to be too harsh on Hela. And that is that it is a budget deck, but more than that, it's a deck that allows people who are worse at the game to compete with people who are better at the game on an even footing.
It's true.
And I think both of those things, as much as this might be anathema to my audience, right? It's very, you know, skill-oriented gamers. It's very important that new players climbing up the ranks have a good deck they can access. It's equally important that players who have not learned everything they may need to learn can still beat my ass. I think that's a really important thing in any card game, is that it's not all about skill and knowledge and the game pieces you own, but sometimes it's also about luck and what you can bring to bear. And so I think Hela is something I would, if I were them, I would take a light hand on it, because I do think it occupies an important role right now for those players who are, maybe they don't know everything about everything, right? But I think one of the things that I want to address in this context is people talk about card game skill like it's flat or like it's in a vacuum, like skill goes from like here to here or something like that. And that's not true, because a lot of card game skill is just knowing stuff. A lot of card game skill is like, oh, I see this card. That means that I know what I'm playing against and I can make better plays in that context, right? That's a lot of card game skill. And that's not skill. That's just knowing things. That's time. That's not skill. It's not the same thing. And so I think that a lot of people lose that, right? Like there needs to be a deck that someone who is maybe not 100% caught up on like all the latest metagame developments can just like take into ranked and do really well with. That's a good thing for the game.
Yeah. On that note, I also want to say that, like, okay, so I just thought of this like now. I don't even know if it's good or bad yet. But what if Hela says something along the lines of like, you can, it only revives cards in locations not in the Hela location. Like it revives in like other than her location. It's more curated, but is it actually better or is it worse? Because I feel like in certain situations that would be better,
I think that's a buff.
right?
I think you gave it more control
Okay, no
over
guys.
what's
Okay,
going
scrap the
on. I'm
idea.
pretty sure that's a buff.
We're not buffing Hela. No. Let's move on from there.
Next up, I wanted to talk about something that I think I have been sort of hammering the drum on, but not a lot of other people have. I think Jeff Hoagland's also been hammering this drum. They keep making good cards, and it makes it very hard to identify what's a good purchase and what's not. If you went into last month and said, every one of these cards is going to be good, I think a lot of people would have been like, what the hell are you talking about, man? They're not all going to be good. But it turns out they're all good. And at this point, I think they have a goal in mind. And it is to create a consumer environment where people just buy the stuff they like instead of just buying the best stuff because they know every card is going to be good. And if the card isn't good, they'll buff it. And so I think their goal is to create a situation where every card they make is actually just good. So everyone who buys it gets to feel good about their purchase. And I am kind of intrigued by that. It sort of requires me to retool how I do card reviews, right? I got to talk about what situations you can put this card in to succeed as opposed to just flat good bad, because there's just really not a lot of bad ones anymore. And I wanted to bring this up in the context of the Eternals season, because I look at this and I think maybe there are some duds in here, you know? Do you think I'm right? Do you think there's any duds in here, or do you think that they just keep doing what they've been doing for the last 2 months and consistently release good to great cards? I guess more than 2 months, right? Since February?
Yeah.
Right? Basically, since Black Swan was the last card they really missed on. Because, like, even something like War Machine, it's like, it was bad, but everyone thought it was good. Which is sort of a different thing, but it's like, I guess War Machine, Black Swan were their last real misses. And everything else, it's like, no, this is just good.
I feel like maybe okay, so based on last month, like the Nomura season, right? The Blink season, I feel like if you just look at the Blink season and those 5 cards, you would think that like this is on purpose, because like it's just all good cards, right? Like there was 0 misses for that one. Even Nomura was not actually a miss.
Yeah.
But then I look at the Eternal season and I was like, okay, maybe the previous month was just, it happened to be all 5 good cards, and this month it's not. It wasn't, it's not that their plan that is to release every single week a good card, right? Because now I look at the Eternal season and I look at some of the ones that obviously speak like a bit more volumes to me, like Thena, Gilgamesh. I think those are fine, are like above average cards, right? Festos, average to above average, depending on how you want to look at it. Then you come to Makari. Okay, I know some of you guys are not so high on the Festos thing, but I'm still a believer. As much as, maybe not as much as I used to be, but I'm still a believer. But you look at Makari. Makari is just probably a miss to me. Makari is the one that runs from your hand to a random location. I mean, it's a 3/3, it's a surfer card that drops out for free, yes, but it also runs into Space Throne, it runs into... you get my point. It runs into, like, locations with your Brute, and then you get clocked. It's completely random. So, like, I think Makari might be a miss for me, but, of course, maybe not as big of a miss as Arishem. Arishem, I think, is probably... It's probably just there because it's a big bad, but I don't actually think it's supposed to be good. Like, okay, I know I said this about Thanos 1.5 years back, but Thanos actually had card draw. But like this one is like a 24 card deck, which doesn't have card draw. So like, I do think Arishem is meant to be a meme, but I might be proven very wrong. But I really think that just by looking at this card, like, I think it's just gonna be a meme. What do you think?
Glenn said that they had to nerf it in their testing.
What?
Yeah.
Like,
Glenn
when did he say that?
Yeah, there was an answer on the dev thing where like a Q&A thing in the Discord where he was like, someone was like, why is RSM a 7/7? He was like, we had to nerf it.
Wait, so you're saying that if it was a 6/7 or 6/6, it was good?
No,
That's
it was
not
like a
bad,
bigger
right?
7, I think. It was like a
Bigger
7. It was like a bigger 7. It was like a
Oh.
7 double digits, I think.
I never
And
thought the body was ever relevant though.
that's what I'm thinking.
Like,
So I've got a backup theory. The reason that was OP was Cersei, because Cersei would turn any 6 into that.
Okay.
That's my
Okay, that makes sense.
theory.
That makes
That's
a
the
lot of sense,
only 7
actually.
in the game, right? So
Makes a lot
any
of sense.
6 turning into like a 12 or a 14 or whatever it was that he was at, that's actually
True.
kind of strong. You do actually kind of have to nerf that. I think that's a little bit of sneaky dev sleight of hand here, right? They're like, oh, we
That's
had to
true.
nerf this because it was too strong, and you think it's about Arishem, but it's not about Arishem.
Yeah.
I caught you. I made that up whole cloth, but I 100% believe it. I
No,
believe
but
it.
I think it makes so much sense, right? Because like obviously there's only one 8 cost in the game, which is death, and then there will
Mm-hmm.
only be one 8 cost in the game, which is Arishem. So if Arishem is okay, Arisham's not supposed to be like a powerful card because it's 7 cost, right? It only really works in his deck. Its own deck on turn 6, which means you have to slam it as one card. So they thought like initially, okay, Agatha style, right? 714 great. Then they realized that Cersei turns any 6 cost, turns your Anim Zola into a 714. Then they're like, okay, maybe not. Right. So I guess maybe true. Maybe what you said when they said they were nerfing Arishem, they just nerfed its stats because of Cersei. But like I don't think there was a way that the Arishem deck was actually good though with this effect.
I don't
Like
know.
if the effect was always add 12 cards to your deck, like I don't care how much energy you get, like it's just 12 random cards and 24 card deck. Like how can you ever plan for any scenario? Or I guess it's meant to be a fun card. Like I do believe that Arisham is meant to be a fun card, right? Like I feel like Arisham, to me, the pitch for Arisham is that it's one of those cards that looks so bad, but you will buy it anyway because it's so fun. Like I will buy the card and just have so much fun with it regardless because it's just a walking pile of RNG, right? Like
Yeah.
it's literally RNG personified in one card and you get a bit of natural ramp. So like it's actually gonna be a really fun card to play. I feel like it's a content card. If it's gonna be good, I will like eat my words, but I highly
Really?
doubt
Because like
so.
I think it actually has a real chance of being good.
Like how?
Like, have you ever
Why?
tried a one-sided wave on turn 2?
No. I mean that's because you get natural ramp, right?
Yeah. So you can play wave, and then you play whatever on 3. You play like your 6-drop on 3. They don't do anything. They're playing a normal game of Marvel Snap. Or you play like Agent Coulson, Nick
Jet,
Fury,
yeah.
and Loki, and suddenly
Okay.
you have that extra energy and a bunch of cards that don't suck.
Okay. No, but my concern is not about actually what you put into the deck. My concern is
Yes.
it's a 24 card deck and
Yeah.
drawing it's like if you tell me you can okay, so let's say the deck is 12 random cards from Arisham, right? But if the 12 cards you put into the deck are all good to be drawn, like at any one point in time, like if all the 12 cards I put in my deck are like Loki level cards, which I don't care when I draw them, as long as I draw them is fine. Then yeah, sure. But like I don't know, man. I mean, there's Queen Jet, which works with the entire deck, sort of. There is Blob, which is just insanely big, I think, in this deck. There is what else? Like, I guess Loki, swap out the bad cards and stuff.
Loki,
But
Nick
like,
Fury. I think Agent Coulson's probably an all-star. Any kind of wave card, like wave
the
Magneto
wave on
turn
3 makes a
3.
lot of sense. The wave on 2, I mean, makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, fine. I wouldn't say it's completely meme there. I guess it's like half a meme.
I'll want to try it, right? Like
For sure,
it's
for
good
sure.
enough that I want to try it. Quake is a card I was terrified of upon its buff, and I think now some of my fears are coming true because this is the most impossible card to play against in the entire game of Marvel Snap. You get quaked on an impactful location, it will absolutely lose you the game. It is a snap condition that everyone realizes now. Like, if you have a quake that's about to come down, you're snapping it, and you're just like, oh my god. And that actually does help, right? Because you can be like, I get what's going on here. They're snapping the quake, so like better players will start snapping far earlier just based on having the quake and knowing that it'll matter, so they don't snap the quake turn and give it away. But yeah, this is a remarkably powerful card in context. It has become one of the better 2-drops in the game, in my opinion. And I guess I just wanted to kind of give her flowers and also say I really, really hope this trend does not continue.
Yeah, Quake is we covered this actually every few videos we cover it once, but we just like where's
Mm-hmm.
the Quake? Like is Quake is so scary, blah blah blah. Now
So
she's
good.
actually played like more often, right? Like Quake is just one of those cards that I feel like it was scary then because no one played it and the person that played it was gonna keep getting 8 cubes. Now it's more commonly played, but the thing is playing around it is so difficult because like if you are committing stuff onto like a location and then you realize they have Quake and then you're just like, oh crap, I already have stuff here, it's all gonna like get quaked into some place bad, right? Or like if you don't have any stuff here and then they just quake you. Like it's just that kind of thing. Like even if you know they have the quake now, it's just like oh man, how do I play around this and play my normal game when it comes to like playing the matchup versus their deck? Like I have to worry about Quick is just like another. Okay, so this is the pitch. Quick is literally another matchup straight up by herself. Like playing against Quick, just playing another matchup, and then playing against your opponent's deck is also like another matchup. It's like you're playing two different matchups in one game when your opponent's deck has the Quick, because you are literally fighting the locations as well, which is crazy, right? Like so now that Quick is more commonly played, you have to fight your opponent and you have to fight the locations as well. And then obviously if you factor in your own Quick, then you will be fighting with your own brain. So
Yeah.
like at the same time, it's quite hilarious but and scary at the same time. But I'm down for this because it adds another layer of like guessing games to the game. Like if you bother to like like take it a bit more like seriously, you realize that it's actually like one layer deeper, one layer scarier, of course. But and yeah, so Quick is just here to stay. I don't really okay. So I'm very curious though, because like why is it like more played now? Is it just because we've been talking about it? People have been talking about it. Is it because like it's able to fit into decks easier now? Because I don't actually think so. I feel like decks that could fit Quick now could fit Quick then as well. So like, why is it like more popular now? Is it just because it's
Thanos
just
is
hype?
gone.
Okay,
That's it. That's my explanation, right? Like
why?
you're
Why is
sitting
it
there relying on tech Thanos gets for free with Reality Stone. And so
okay?
when
There's still
Thanos
not
goes
done though.
away and people aren't getting that stuff for free, it's a lot less embarrassing to play a 2/3. Like there are
Okay.
decks that can afford to play 2/3s now because we're playing normal curve out stuff instead of every Professor X deck being a Thanos deck, right? So we end up in a spot where you're no longer playing what feels like a soft version of a Thanos tech card, right? Like
Okay.
if they want to get rid of that location, they just do that with Reality Stone. They get that for free. They don't even pay a cost for it. They don't have to play the card. And you are in a situation where I think that ends up having more value because there are decks that can actually play a 2/3 and not be embarrassed by it. Like when you look at like the Leech Blink deck, there are like 3 slots for 2-drops there. You only really have 2 good 2-drops, Jeff and White Widow, and so she ends up being that third one a lot of the time. That's why I think Quake is, and then like once you lose to Quake, you're like, all right, I'll try to fit this in. And so it sort of snowballs from there.
Wait, so you're essentially saying that like Quick was always possible to be played, but it's more considered right now because people don't have like a Reality Stone. I mean,
Yeah.
there is Reality Stone, but no one plays Thanos
Yeah.
essentially.
I'm saying that like we got all this stuff for free and now we don't get all this stuff for free in Thanos. And in
So people
Thanos, like
started
specifically, playing a
considering.
2/3 is pretty embarrassing
Okay.
unless it's Jeff. And
Yes.
so you can actually have more space, more decks to play the 2/3 in when you're not just Thanosing people.
Okay, I can buy that.
That's my theory. Speaking of 2/3s, Ravonna Renslayer. And I wanted to bring up Ravonna because this is a card that I think is actually really good right now. Just Ravonna Renslayer is
Mhm.
really good. My question to you, though, is how much of her being really good is just turn 4 Professor X?
I think the main reason she's really good to me was turn for Professor X. Like
Okay.
I had this tweet. Like about a month or so back whereby I was like, I played Ravonna in this deck for 2 use cases, for literally 2 cards in my deck. And I literally had a statement right below. I was like, I would totally just play this just to play the Prof on 4, even without the second use case. Like I would play Ravonna to Prof on 4. That's how good the Prof on 4 is. Because it's the time stone thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the reason why time stone was OP, outside of playing a 5 on 4, was you are playing the 5 on 4, the Prof on 4, right? It's D5. So like I feel yes, Ravonna being OP is because you can play Prof on 4, but I think she's getting more OP right now because in a previous video again, which you should watch on one of our channels, I can't remember which one, but like I did say that Ravonna was not out of hand because most of her good like cards don't fit all in the same deck, right?
Yeah.
Like, but the thing is now, if you look at it, right, Angela, Sage, they can fit in the same deck. Even Safety Blade did this whole like Professor X Angela
Yeah.
thing, right, which you mentioned, and Havoc, which is all now in the same deck. Thena, Thena comes out
Yeah.
and also now fits in the same deck.
Sure
So now we've
does.
just made Ravonna Zabu Renslayer, right? It's effectively she's there, like she's just now the Zabu, right? Because not say every, but like Sage, Thena might not be just the best thing to do, but if Thena's a one cost, like really, like it's not a problem, right? Thena a one cost with Angela, with Sage, with maybe even Prof, like that's kind of like the Zabu thing coming back all over again because they all now fit in the same deck.
She's pretty good, but I do wonder exactly how carried by Prof she is.
I think quite a bit.
Finally, patch wish list. And we're going to start with you. What is it that you want to see in an upcoming OTA, hypothetically?
For me, it's never really any different in the sense that like my two okay, so I don't actually have like specific cards on my list right now, but like it's always two things for me. Firstly is I don't really want like nerfs. I'm the kind of person that likes like if I want to do the broken thing, everyone does the broken thing. So I want like more stuff to be strong, you know. Like I want like more stuff to be pushed up a level. Like okay, they did try to do stuff with like Captain America. That wasn't really a hit, but like it at least is seeing play right now. I actually see Captain America on my grinds now. Claw was a super like big hit. Claw
Yeah.
was really well done, right? So I want buffs. I want buffs to push cards into territory where you will consider fitting like them into your good decks, you know, or like making a totally new deck based around a newly buffed card. And of course, another thing is like a total rework. Like, okay, I guess as much as I keep saying that I don't actually have specific cards that I would want to like change, I do want a Kang rework though. Like I really want a Kang rework because so this is my pitch for a Kang, which I've mentioned a lot of times, but I don't know if it's ever gonna happen because it's gonna like take a lot of effort. But my pitch with Kang is because Kang is like the interdimensional traveler, right? He has like multiple variants and stuff like that. I want Kang to be like at the start of the game, shuffle a random copy of a Kang into your deck. There's 6 different Kangs, and each of them has 6 very drastically different effects. And at the start of your game, one random copy goes into your deck, and you don't know which one it is. It's like basically Nico,
No, I
but
like
at the
that.
start of the it's
That's good.
basically Nico, but it's predetermined only at the start of the game. And that's gonna be quite exciting, I feel.
I
So
think that's
that's something
awesome.
I wish they would do. If SD like watches this, I hope they do consider that because I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a way to go. Because, like, one of the things I think about Kang a lot is people are like, oh, just buff him, just make him leave power behind. And it's like, no. The thing about this Kang is this Kang sucks on multiple levels. It's not bad because it's a bad card. It is a bad card. Like, it's not good to play if you want to win games. But it's also a card that extends games for no reason. Like,
Yes.
it's a card that doesn't really provide a ton of massive value. It's a very good design from top down perspective. This is a time traveler. He's doing time travel stuff. That's very good at that. But I think what people need to do is get more into the mindset of just like fully reworking this card. And that means going with a different concept. Because every time I've thought about time traveler for Kang, I think that you can't do that in a card game. Because if it's good, it's the most broken
Yeah.
thing ever. And if it's bad, it's going to be completely
Time
ass.
walk or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're just not going to do that at all. We're going to go lean into the other aspect of Kang would be my thought process. Now, as far as stuff I want to see changed in the balance patch, Hela, Professor X. That's what I want to see changed. Do I know how? No. Do I care? Also, no. I don't work for Second Dinner. They get paid to make design decisions, not me. Not my job. I don't have to suggest anything for that. They should just do something about that. I get to be like the rabble here. I get to be like, no, you fix this. You made this problem. You fix it. I don't have to fix it for you. And I think that that would be where I would start. In terms of buffs, I want to see buffs specifically to Miles Morales, but generally to the Destroy archetype. That's what I would want.
How would we buff Destroy? Okay, because I feel like Destroy, once Destroy gets more consistency, it's kind of just over. So
I
I
don't
don't
mean new
think you can.
cards. I mean like
Okay.
Deathlock 3/6, Wolverine
Oh, that kind of buffs.
2/3.
Okay.
Yeah, just like give it a little bit of a nudge so that this deck can start
Okay.
being real again. It's a deck that is, especially if you're going to nerf Hela, I want there to be another quasi budget deck out there.
Yeah. I think you can give Destroy stats, but you can't give it consistency. If you give Destroy consistency, I think it's just like the best deck ever. And plus Conquest with locations, it's
Yeah.
just over, man. So I think give it stats, it's fine. Yeah, okay, Prof. Okay, so when you mentioned Prof and Hela, I think I just want to chime in on the Prof part. Hela, I have completely no idea how they can
Yeah.
change it. But like for Prof, I think try the 5-0. People are gonna counter argue with like, oh, Mr. Negative 0-5
That's
Prof. But
fake.
like honestly, 1-5 Prof is the same as 0-5
Yeah.
Prof. Yeah, so it doesn't really make a difference. I feel other than Jane, but you're gonna lose anyway if that happens. But yeah, I think you try the 5-0 Prof because that means you can't win a location with Prof alone, you know, because YOLO Prof from hand when there's like 2 empty locations does happen, especially if Ravona it's turn 4, it really does happen. So 5-0, 5-0, right? You can't win a Prof lane alone. You need your X-Men, you need your support.
Yep. To me, my X-Men.
Yeah. Yo.
All right, thank you so much for watching that extra long version of 8 Cubes. I have been KM Best. He has been Lamby Series. We will see you in the next one. Lamby, take us out of here.
Hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for being here. Do subscribe and give us a comment. We will see you guys in the next one. Ta-ta.